Ladies and gentlemen, if I can pull you to order, the first item on the agenda is election of chairman. Do I have any nominations for chairman?
I'd like to propose Kevin Reynolds, please.
I'm happy to second.
Do I have any further nominations? Councillor Reynolds would like to take the chair.
Well, thank you, members, for that confidence. Before I take the next item, could I ask you to stand for a moment's silence in respect of those who have died and been injured in a great tragedy in London? Thank you very much. Move on to the next item, appointment of vice chairman. Do I have any nominations? From the chair of... Oh, all right, yes, from you.
Councillor
Go on,
Peach.
yes,
Yeah.
Councillor Peach.
I'll tell you why, Chairman, I need his seat.
That's a very good choice. You took the words right out of my mouth. Actually, Councillor Giles, that's just what I was going to do. Do you have a seconder, please, Councillor Peach? Oh, plenty of them. Councillor Bywater will be name again. Any other nominations? No? Councillor Peach, please come and join me.
Thank you very much. There,
Don't
look.
forget this. Oh no, wrong one.
I'll move the chair out of the way so you got more room.
Thank you very much.
Two votes as well.
Thank you. Moving swiftly on, apologies for absence.
Apologies from Councillor Gardner.
I believe we've got a full complement. Thank you. Those of you, next item, those of you who were here, minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of February 2017.
Happy to propose those chairman as well.
Anybody else who was here who can second them? All right, thank you. They've been proposed and seconded, those who were here. You're all in agreement? Thank you. I signed off as such. Chairman's announcements. Not too much today, but obviously I'd like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the work of Sir Peter Brown, who was chairman of this authority for a number of years. Peter done a lot of work behind the scenes for the Fire Authority, and I know he'll be missed by many. He's off the political scene totally now, having a well-earned rest. With your indulgence, I'd like to send him a letter of thanks for all the work that he's done, not only for the Fire Authority, but for the people of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough in his role as chairman. Would you be happy for me to do that? Thank you. I'll use this opportunity, if I may, as it's on the news and everywhere about the fire in London, for the chief or one of his nominees, just to give us a very brief update on what the situation is within Cambridgeshire and Peterborough with regard to high rises, and a very brief overview, please.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. Clearly it was a tragic event that happened in Grenfell House. Pleased to say it's not a common occurrence in the UK. Certainly one that there's going to be a huge amount of learning that comes out from the incident. There are currently, as we understand it, 17 people who are in hospital at the moment, plus a further 17 confirmed deaths in the incident, and there are many people still unaccounted for. So this is a massive incident for the country, and a huge incident for London Fire Brigade. I'd like to acknowledge the professionalism and clear bravery, I think, that was shown by the firefighters in London in attempting to assist the people within the building to escape, and in attempting to deal with what was a very serious fire. So our thoughts have already been expressed to London Fire Brigade, and it's just an opportunity here just to acknowledge that in public. In terms of our own actions internally, we met together yesterday morning as a as a senior team to talk about the implications for us as a service. We've issued 2 internal memorandums to our staff, one to acknowledge what had happened, and the second then to update them on the outcomes of our discussion. So we've kept our staff briefed on what's happening. Members will have received 1 briefing, and I will be forwarding on the internal brief that we sent to our staff. We've also issued a press statement, and that was developed in conjunction with the National Fire Chiefs Council, so we made sure that we were in line with other fire services. We've issued a statement so to give people some reassurance, hopefully, particularly those people who are living in high-rise accommodation. As an authority area, we don't have that many high-rise buildings of the sort of magnitude that there was in London, although we do have a very small number. We're talking less than 10. The most notable one is Grantchester House, which is in Addenbrooke's. So as we've said to our staff, we already do carry out regular inspections of high-rise buildings. Our inspections are limited to the common areas. Clearly we can't go into people's houses and inspect their properties, but we do inspect the common areas. We will be revisiting them again in the coming weeks, just to reinforce our messages in terms of resident safety and to make sure those premises remain to the standard that we would expect them. We're reviewing our training of high-rise. We have introduced recently new procedures for high-rise building incidents, and we'll be making sure that the training is fully embedded across the organisation and revisiting it where we need to. And as I said, we've already issued the statement of advice to residents of those properties. There will be, of course, a full investigation carried out, and I would imagine that's already started in earnest. I suspect, based on previous experience, that will take some time to come out, but rest assured, members, whatever does come out, we will learn from it, and if there are things that we need to do differently, then we will do. That's it, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Chief. If we can now move on to the next item, which is declaration of interest. And with regard to that, I have made inquiries to see with item 10, members' allowances, if it is necessary. And I've been informed that on this occasion it's not necessary to declare individual interest, as it affects everybody. Are there any other interest you wish to declare at this stage? Thank you. Next one, integrated risk management plan.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon, members. The Integrated Risk Management Plan is in front of you today. This is a central document, and echoing the comments made by the Chief of Office in relation to the events in London yesterday and the actions of all those emergency responders. The Integrated Risk Management Plan just goes to show the importance of ensuring that we have the resources in the right place at the right time. The IRMP process is a requirement detailed in the National Fire and Rescue Service Framework for England, and as a core of that, it is incumbent on the authority to look for opportunities to drive down risks by utilising their resources in the most efficient and effective way. The RMP has legal force, and it's therefore incumbent on the authority to demonstrate that its IRM principles are applied throughout the organisation. The actual IRNP, which is currently still in draft, is attached for you as part of your pack. The IRNP document reviews the service's progress to date and highlights initiatives that will be further explored to either mitigate risk that we face or seize the opportunities that are presented to us to enable us to achieve our vision quicker, of course, all within inside a balanced budget. The document represents the central improvement plan for the service, and as such sets out our strategic direction and the performance measures that we will utilise and be held to account for in order to deliver that. Sitting underneath this is an operational action plan which is owned by the service. The IRMP is a result of some detailed analysis and work which looks at the authority, the risks and the opportunities that it faces in terms of being able to move towards its vision. And the context, which is detailed for you in 5.4 of your paper, is the environment in which this plan seeks to respond. It's a recognition that fire calls continue to fall despite an increase in population. Difficulties in the retention of on-call firefighters have resulted in fire cover not matching demand, especially when fire calls are at their highest and our on-call availability is at its lowest as a result of the challenges we face within that particular work group. An ageing demography presents challenges to the Fire Authority in its attempts to continue to drive down fire-related deaths and injuries. Members who have been on authority for some time will have heard me mention on numerous occasions the real parallels and similarities between those people known to our social care and those people who die in our fires. The ageing population means those challenges get greater for us. The retirement profile of the service provides excellent opportunity for the authority to actively drive workforce reform in terms of creating a more diverse workforce and also a workforce that is able to better represent the communities we serve and have the skills and abilities to lead the organisation forward in an ever-changing environment. And of course the opportunity for the authority to continue to build upon its successful collaborations to both improve efficiency, resilience and service delivery. As a result of those points, the service is proposing in 5.5 a number of areas which are detailed within the Integrated Risk Management Plan. A diversification of the role of fire service to provide greater value to the public by increasing our work with health and social care. It builds on our work we're doing already with adult social care around enhancing our home safety checks as well as the current pilots under the National Scheme for Co-Responding. Working with representative bodies and staff to better align our resources to demand, and in addition considering a wide range of alternative ways to support the retention of our on-call firefighters who continue to remain key to our ability to deliver our service. To further extend, as I've already said, our safe and well visits to those more vulnerable in our communities, reviewing our recruitment and promotion processes to ensure that we remove any barriers and therefore anything that might prevent us from attracting and retaining a diverse workforce, and through our Blue Light Interoperability Board, continuing to explore the opportunities for shared estates and shared resources where there is a clear case to do so. That plan was put out for publication for staff and public consultation on the 1st of March and ran until the 1st of June 2017. Attached in Appendix 1 is a breakdown of those consultation responses. Now, members will recall from previous years that attracting interest and response to RMP has always been a challenge for us in terms of getting comments back into the authority. So on this occasion we've taken a slightly different approach to do that. We have once again gone for an online survey that's been published on our website for people to look at and feed their comments back via an online. We've used our managers' seminars as well as staff engagement groups to get the views of staff around our IRMP. And this time we've also run a series of public focus groups, which has involved us commissioning an external agency to hold a series of focus groups for us around the county, bringing in a representative sample of the public from various different districts to ask questions about the public service in general, but specifically about the fire and rescue service and the plans within our IRMP. Those are detailed for you in the appendix set out, and you can see as we go through the various things that came back from both of those. In relation to the online survey, we had 26 responses to that online survey, once again highlighting the difficulty that type of approach has to engaging a community in excess of 800,000 people in a consultation like this. Nevertheless, you can see in 2.2 onwards through in your papers the responses. 76% of respondents throughout the document was well presented. It was easy to understand. 81% said they had a better understanding of what the fire service perceived as its main risks, and a good understanding at 73% of what we were aiming to improve. The focus groups were perhaps the most interesting. They provided a great insight into people's perception of public services generally, but more specifically, as I say, the fire and rescue service. And we're just putting together a full report of that now, but the summary of the findings are available for you here, starting at 2.3 and working through. In response to that, we asked the public two specific questions. One was around the diversification of the role of fire, and the second was around our response standards. In relation to the extra services, there was a general feeling for the public that that was worth doing. Most people were accepting that the fire and rescue services carrying out other roles if they had the capacity and the right skills and knowledge to do it. One particular focus group felt very strongly that firefighters should stick to firefighting and not divert their attention to other things. However, there was a general feeling that it was a good thing to do as long as the staff had the skills to do so, and importantly from a public perception perspective, that when they arrived at someone who was in need of a co-responding service, that those firefighters were very easily distinguishable as members of emergency services who could help, as opposed to, there's an awful lot of members of the public said, if I dialed 999 for an ambulance and got a fire engine, I think I'd be concerned, because I'd think, hey, no, something gone wrong, I asked for an ambulance and I've seen they've got a fire service. But as long as they had the skills and it was easily identifiable that they could help, that seemed to be a positive thing that people wanted to do. In terms of value for money and what the public thought is value for money, there's more work for us to do there. On the whole, the public thought the fire and rescue service was good value for money, but very much from the basis of if they'd had anything to do with us in an operational context. There was little understanding about the promotion and the work we do in terms of preventing fires in the first place, and there's more work I think as an authority we need to do to ensure that that work that our crews and our staff do is recognised. And that's highlighted in 2.5.3 of your paper, where approximately 60% of the participants found it difficult to offer an opinion on whether the fire service offered good value for money or not. In response to response targets, this was a common theme. Members who were on the authority previously will recall that we were looking to simplify our response standards to try and create a simpler standard, which was an average of 10 minutes, which was an improvement target for us to make. But we also thought that would be more simple for the public to understand than what we had previously. The focus groups, together with the staff consultations, clearly showed that we were wrong in that actually the public expected that if we said there was an average of 10 minutes, then that meant that they would get a fire engine within 10 minutes. And actually that wasn't the case, because in some of our rural areas that's more difficult, and there was actually a recognition from the public that they understood that. What the public was saying was that it needed to be clear exactly what standard the fire service would deliver, and that was also quite a common thing coming back from our staff as well in terms of those response standards. So if we move over to 3 on the appendix, which is page 19, I think, of your pack, you will see the outcomes from all of this and the proposed changes that we seek to make to the IRMP as a result. And it's these changes that I'm seeking today for you to approve, so we can make the changes to the actual document and enable it to be published. The page numbers, so you'll see it says 3.1.1 page 20, are the small red numbers in the actual IRMP document. Just to make things a little bit more confusing for you. That's how we're taking forward. So the first one was around workforce diversity. We had a line in the IRMP that talked about improving greater gender diversity in different areas of the workforce and working to build long-term engagement with black and minority ethnic communities. There was a great deal of feedback that said that was too narrow. And actually, if we really wanted a more diverse workforce, we needed to think more than just about gender and BME. We also needed to think about things such as LGBT, because we go bisexual, transgender issues as well. And therefore, the whole diversity area should be widened out more. And that is the area that we are proposing to change it to ensure that we recognise that it's actually much wider than that. Although there's an area of focus there for us, we need to recognise that it's more wider than that. So there's a proposed change to that. In terms of the performance measures, we were originally talking about simplifying to talk about attending the most serious incidents in our authority area within an average of 10 minutes for the first fire engine and 15 minutes for the second fire engine. Back to the public consultation again, the views of staff, there was a view there that meant that anywhere in the county you'd get a fire engine within 10 minutes. And we felt again that wasn't actually what we were saying. We were talking about average. The term average confused the public about what do you mean by average. And so we are proposing to go back to the original attendance times that we had, in the way that we illustrate them, in that we will respond to the most serious incidents in our urban areas within 9 minutes and 12 minutes in our rural areas. Now, most members will recognise that's an improvement in our rural areas. It's an improvement of 1 minute. Currently we sit at 13 minutes, and that would be an improvement if we were able to do that. And that's in line with our plans around improving on call, and also in line with our plans around improving the number of appliances we have available during the day. So there's another proposed change there. And finally, the change is around the area on the back, which is page 23, which is an area that's just a change that actually, since the draft RMP was published, our efficiency plan, which is the plan that we submitted to government to secure our 4-year settlement, has been approved. And so that change in there just reflects that advancement is, if you like, since the draft was published. I'm happy to take any questions there may be. I'd like to thank Hayley and Douglas and the Media and Communications team for organising the public consultation. We've done it in a slightly different way this time, but I think the value we've got from it has been an exercise worth doing.
Thank you for that. Before I take questions, can I just check on a point of confirmation that figures are correct before we proceed? On page 27, population figures, it immediately struck me that the Huntingdonshire figure was considerably out. So I googled it. Then I looked at Fenland and I googled that. And I think there's typos on both of those. Is that something we can double check?
We can double check. What page are you on, Chair?
Well, page 27 of the plan. 47 of the agenda and 27 of the plan. It's got Huntingdonshire down to 69,508, and it's actually 169,508. And Fenland down for 95,262, and I believe it's 98,216. If you could check the rest of those figures and update them if necessary.
Yeah, we'll need to make the changes. If you approve those changes, we'll get the whole document another proof check before we publish it. Thanks for that.
I've got Mac to speak.
Chairman, thank you for the presentation. I'd like to, I will in due course be happy to obviously support the recommendations that the amendments have shown. But I was curious, although he did I think cover it in his introduction, on 5.5 on page 14 of our papers, the current paper, it says, as a result of the point in paragraph 5.7, the service was proposing. I'm assuming that is proposing.
Well, that was what we was proposing to the consultation. The changes to that are just detailed, so that will be there with the exceptions.
Because it did infer something like in the past, so I was just trying to clarify it. Okay, thank you for that. The second one is, in terms of the public and staff consultation, are you able to tell me, whether it's a focus group or an individual, what was the police commissioner's response to our RMP consultation? Did we receive one?
We did, yes we did. The police commissioner's response, quite me verbatim, but was supportive of the direction of travel and wanted to seek the opportunity to use the legislation around collaboration to further their links with the Fire and Rescue Service.
Thank you.
Councillor Kindersley.
Thank you, Chairman. And first of all, congratulations on your ascendancy to chairmanship of the Fire Authority. You're practised at this, aren't you, Chairman?
Just a little bit. Thank you very much.
I recognise that we are simply agreeing a number of relatively small changes to the document. It is a refresh rather than a renewal. But there are just 3 points that I would like to explore. The first one is around the consultation. I represent 13 parishes on the County Council and further to district level. And I can fairly confidently say that the consultation passed them all by. Now, I'm not sure whether, I realise it's very difficult, isn't it, to force people to respond to a consultation at all. But I do feel that had perhaps I been in a position to ask each parish council to do a response, they may not have done. I suppose this is a long way of saying please don't underestimate the usefulness of elected members. We can put it in front of people, We all have village town magazines and so on that we contribute to on a monthly basis, and this is the sort of ideal thing to use as a leading article in the Gamlingay Gazette, for example. But for that to happen, there has to be, advanced thought, because, lead-in times for village magazines in particular tends to be, considerable. So you don't want to have it such that it's all over by the time people get it, and neither do you want it so far away that they've forgotten about it by the time they get it on their doorstep. So perhaps that's something for our communications team to have a think about for next time round. Or equivalent undertakings. The second point I just want to draw attention to is the rise in deliberate fires. And I recognise the reasons for this, in particular the deliberate fires from prisons. But it does strike me that within a prison there should be a certain amount of collaboration, I would have thought, between prison authorities and ourselves about how to reduce the level of deliberate fires. And lastly, I did want to just address one issue which you highlight in terms of your attempts to get into specific ethnic minorities. And there is reference to the Gypsy and Traveller community, and there is reference to the fact that Fenland is one of the highest populations in the country. Actually, it is the highest population of Gypsy and Traveller community members in the country, with South Cambridgeshire as second highest. So in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough as a whole, clearly there is, a significant population. Now, they may not be a population that suffers any more or less frequently from fire, but they are, when they do suffer from fire, it tends to have very dire consequences. It's not just a kitchen fire, it's a mobile home going up completely, and from time to time, very sadly, with a fatality. And the reason why I raise it is because the paragraph ends with, "We will continue to raise awareness of the needs of this group with our staff and partners." That's brilliant, but the missing bit is, what are we doing within that community specifically to address the concerns and the issues that they may not be aware that they have, actually. And in particular, I'm thinking about working with environmental health departments, the district councils, in terms of distances between mobile homes and caravans and so on, all the sort of things that, when it comes to fire in particular, they can be very significant. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Would you like to respond to any of those points?
I think they're both excellent points. In relation to prisons, absolutely right. There is a need to join up with HMP in terms of how we do that. Peterborough was a really good example for the prevention enforcement services, where HMP Peterborough are part of that partnership, which has helped us to deal with a number of issues that in Peterborough prison as a result of that should end up working. So just a reassurance, we should have been doing that. And I think, again, the point about the travelling community is absolutely right. It's about how we engage and how we educate that particular community. There's some really good work going on. We've got some really good joint up working with environmental health and stuff in districts, especially in South Cambridgeshire, where the business hub currently sits. It's about expanding on those and making sure that they're excellent points, and we'll make sure that they're Thank you
very much.
Have you any comments with regard to the point of consulting parish councils?
Again, I think how we can utilise Loose Files members, I think it's been a difficult transition with the membership changing over the period of time the consultation's been out. But I think absolutely it's probably an area we don't use you enough for. It's a real skill that you have, and we need to think about how to engage you in the future development of these.
Thank you.
Councillor Rains.
Thank you, Chairman. Just reflections as a new member, actually, I thought it was having this on the agenda as a first thing to look at is been really helpful as an introduction to the way the authority looks at things, the way the service intends to act. And I'm particularly impressed by the way in which it makes the link between identifying strategic risks and then actions to deal with them. And not only we're talking about saying wellness, it's not overlap with the social care client group, but item 8 on our agenda as well is addressed at tackling one of those risks, so that's great. I have my own very local parish councils, and I recognise what Councillor Kindersley has said, that just the whole approach to engagement with the public here, and the fact that you have stepped up to engage people in new ways here is very impressive, and so I'd encourage you to continue with that. And then just building on one thing, Rick, that you said about what came through in the focus groups. I think you said 60% of people found it difficult to say whether we offered value for money. And that then led me back to a tiny bit of the drafting, where I think just a drafting suggestion, but I think we slightly sell ourselves short. We talk about dealing with government cuts, which is kind of passive and victim-y. And actually, if we just change that to say managing resources more efficiently, or something like that, because we were talking about some of this morning, you really did get ahead of the game in anticipating resource constraints, and you should probably make something of that.
It's all over now, though, isn't it? Austerity, doesn't it come to an end?
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I think I caught it in your presentation about turnout for rural areas. It's currently 13 minutes and it's going to go down to 12?
That's the proposal, yeah.
Right. Is that realistic?
Yes,
I don't mean that to be funny.
No, I don't know. I think
Basically-
it's just a very pertinent point given the kind of next item on the agenda. I think, yes, it is, if we can make the improvements that we are seeking to make as an authority. If we can continue to invest in the on-call, we can find ways of recruiting more and retaining
That was my point,
those
yeah.
people on those key stations, as well as making the changes that we're going to hopefully come on to talk about. Then I think it is achievable. It will give us something to improve towards, and fundamentally be able to sit here in by 2020 and say we made an improvement to the service we deliver to the community. I think something that we'll need to do. So we will be recommending it. We didn't think we could do it.
And does this document sort of come back several times, or is it a live document? Does it change?
Yeah, it's a live document, refreshed as and when things change. Those
Right,
refreshments
so
come back. Overview and scrutiny, get a quarterly update in terms of the performance within it. And we bring regular updates in terms of the particular areas like co-responding to policy and resources.
Thank you.
Chair, could I just add? I mean, it's a really good point you make, Councillor Smith. We had a piece of work done on our ability to crew our appliances, and whilst it was probably 2 or 3 years ago now, it did highlight the point. If we had 100% availability of all of our on-call appliances, we would reach our attendance standards without any trouble at all. So the big difficulty for us in reaching them is the fact that we can't crew our appliances 100% of the time, particularly during the day, when we can have as few as 8 on-call appliances available throughout the service, which is less than half of our complement, well, a lot less. So I think it's an interesting point. If we can improve availability, we can improve attendance standards. And some of the recommendation we're making around citing appliances in areas where we do struggle should assist us in that process, but it is a stretch target as things currently stand.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Scutt, followed by Councillor Giles.
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for this very comprehensive report, and particularly the attachment. I just did though want to refer to the issue as to whether we refer to cuts or sanitise that expression in any way, and I would very strongly suggest that we do need to acknowledge that what this authority, like every other authority throughout the United Kingdom, is suffering is from cuts, and that we ought not to, as I say, sanitise that. So I very strongly support the fact that you've mentioned that. The other aspect I'd like to, I've just been actually have read the attachment, and it was very interesting the fact that men living alone are more likely to suffer from the consequences of fire and so on. And I'm just wondering whether is any action that can be taken to actually prevent that from happening, to look at the fact that people who are living alone are more at risk, because I expect that's one of the factors in it, because women living alone are at risk too. So I'm wondering whether the authority looks at that particular issue in any detail.
But quite a comprehensive one in terms of target our resources to home safety. I'll be more than happy to sit down with you or some of the teams to sit down with you to talk through how we do that and make any improvements we can.
Councillor Giles, followed by Councillor Rogers.
Right, thank you, Chairman. Yes, it's a pretty good all singing and dancing presentation here. Can I pick up on page 20, I think it is, about people, and it's one thing, third bullet point from the bottom, which is introducing apprenticeship schemes into the service to provide alternative career paths. There again, it's something I think we've mentioned in the past as very desirable. Has it come to any fruition yet? Has it started, or?
Yeah, we are beginning some work. We'll be aware that the government have an apprenticeship levy, which is kind of top sliced from us and taken away. We can draw that back down based on the number of apprentices that we bring back in. We're starting to look in some of our professional support services where we can look at apprenticeships first, so areas like ICT and business support, as those being the first part. In terms of the operational sphere, one of the things we need for an apprenticeship is a framework of which to hang it off, and there isn't a framework at the moment in terms of the operational sphere. But again, that's something that we're looking at. There is one around business safety, so fire protection and community safety, which is currently being refreshed, etc. at the moment, so there's another opportunity for us there. But we've got some plans in terms of some of our workforce reform, and we'll be keeping you updated on those as we go through the year.
Yeah, keep us up to date on that. Thank you.
Councillor Rogers.
Touching on what you've already discussed, on page 10, and with regard to attendance rate, being a newbie, and maybe clear myself, the 95% standard, is that a national requirement?
No, that isn't. No, all the national standards were removed some years ago in the instruction of IRMPs. That's something that we kept in there. It's a measure that kind of, the reason it's in there is to prevent slippage, I guess, on other incidents. So although we will get to the most serious incidents within those times, what about the others? And it's a catch-all that sits on the end just to make sure that you're not waiting for 2 or 3 hours if your incident is classified.
It's a standard we've set ourselves then, rather than something that's been imposed.
It is, yes. All of our standards are standards based on our resourcing.
And going on into the meeting, looking at the next agenda item, surely if that is adopted, that should help you improve your particular attendance rates. Is that what I'm reading into that? Again, being newbie, having a floating to extra crews and that.
Absolutely, that will help.
I'm looking in your crystal ball. Will you be meeting the 95% or not, do you think?
That will certainly help us to meet the 95%. I mean, we're just outside it at the moment, so that will certainly help us.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Chair, can I just add as well? I think it's important to know that it's not the only measure we're taking as well. We also use some of our on-call staff who may work on Station A, but they work on Station B sometimes when it's short, if we need them to provide cover where we think that needs to happen. So that helps us to get strategic appliances out. So we're accepting we can't get all the appliances out, but we try and focus on getting the more important ones, if you like.
It's a very steep learning curve for the likes of myself and other members. Yes.
Yeah, and that's a fairly recent thing as well. It's quite new, because normally an on-call member of staff would only respond in their own area, to their own station.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Jamel.
Thank you, Chair. Are we not in danger of becoming victims of our own success in terms of fire rates dropping, but then that's to do with the excellent work, the initiatives that we've done over the years, in terms of the work that we would go out into the community, the fire alarms, the schools and stuff. What in terms of this document, what are we doing to maintain in light of, the cuts that we've had?
I think, to pick up on that point, it's been levelled at the Fire Rescue Service before that you're kind of doing yourself out of a job, but that's kind of measure and testament to the excellent work that goes on across the authority to drive down fires and create a safer community, which is what we all serve to do. But as the Chief kicked off with, the incidents in London just go to show that actually fires do still happen and the risk remains. And the Fire and Rescue Service, as we talked this morning, is predicated on the risk, not demand. And so, yes, we're having less and less incidents, but those incidents will still occur. It's a fact, and then we need to make sure that when they do, the fact that our crews aren't attending as many incidents as they have done in the past is even more important while we have realistic training and while we make sure that we maintain the competence competence and the diverse range of skills now that our crews are being expected to do. Even from when I joined 20 years ago, the expectation on a firefighter now in terms of the level of equipment and the technology, etc., they need to be able to use and operate, and the range of incidents they go to is a great difference to just 20 years ago. So that's something that we need to keep working on, and we need to make sure that we continue to build time into the working day of a firefighter to maintain those competencies.
Chair, can I add? Sorry to keep adding. And again, it's a really important point. Something that we've always done, particularly since 2010, is if we make any recommendations to you as members, we tell you what the impact will be on our ability to deliver a service. And certainly as a result of the changes that we've had to make across the piece, we have, in effect, we've addressed all the low-hanging fruit, if you like. And we've made it clear to members that, yes, we are very lean and very effective, but we're not demand-led, we are risk-based. So if we get big incidents, then we do start to get stretched if they're large incidents. So if you look at what happened yesterday, we would have to ask for the support of surrounding services to deal with an incident that required somewhere in the region of 200 firefighters on the ground at any one time. We have, whole time wise, 30 on the ground during the day, plus our on-call staff as well. So we don't have the same volume of people. So that's something that very clearly comes across, and it's something that we're really mindful of right now, because we still have more cuts to make to our service budget, reductions and improvements in how we manage the amount of money that we have. And if we take more cuts than are currently predicted, then it will become tricky for us, because we will start to be moving into those areas where it will have an increasingly difficult impact on our ability to deliver that frontline service.
Councillor Adey.
Thank you, Chair. It's that very area I wish to highlight. As another one of the returning members, I recall 16 years ago being in this authority, and we were struggling with budgets then. In those 16 years that I've been off the authority, you've sustained cut upon cut upon cut. There's a point at which you no longer can deliver the service that people expect and are entitled to. We see that fires and accidents are reducing, therefore there is an element of, yes, we can reduce this insurance cover we've got. But I pay tribute to our professionals and to the members of the authority who have managed to continue to magic up cuts and deliver the frontline services. I despair at how much longer we'll be able to do that, so I echo the comments from across the table. So we have that challenge in the future. I'm pleased to see at the end, bread and butter issues of fire and road traffic accidents. I'm pleased to see at the end of our paper we also have a priority in terms of gender, transgender, religion and belief and sexual orientation. These things should not be pushed into the side. I'm glad they're there, and you continue with that work as well. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Sorry. Yes.
Thanks. Briefly, can I just go back to the points that Chris made? Basically, that if there was a problem here, we would have to call on other neighbouring services to help us out. That equally goes sort of, if there's a problem there, they would call on us, wouldn't they? Or do conversations go on with neighbouring brigades or services to see what cuts or changes they're making, so as we're not all making the same change?
Yes. I'll answer that, Jay. Yes, we do. There's an operational forum, a regional operational forum that we attend. We do share our IRMPs amongst each other, so we do talk about the impacts that are going to be had, or the impacts that will take effect on each one of the services that surround us. So far to date, I think, to be candid, I think the area we'd focus on mostly would be our relationship with Hertfordshire, because Royston, as members will know, those who've been here for a while, they do support us very much so in the south of our area. We have an agreement with them to provide support when we have incidents, and we pay them for that, and that's a very good relationship. And by the same token, we also provide support in the Wisbech area to Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service. So there's some good working arrangements that go on around the country. And ever since I've been in this service, the bigger incidents, we do ask for support from other services, because we are a small on-call, predominantly on-call service. So we do end up requiring additional support when you get bigger incidents.
Yeah, just making sure all discussions were going on so changes weren't made
Yeah.
and there was gaps.
No, certainly we always talk about what's going on.
Councillor Scott, you can have another bite of the apple as well.
Thank you. I'd just like to follow up on what's been said, particularly by Councillor Smith and Councillor Adey, that if we do look at the situation that happened in London yesterday, then what we're confronted with is that if something happened here, which praise be it doesn't, then we're actually responsible. And therefore I do want to ask the authority if at any time it has actually made really clear to the authorities in London who are actually responsible for the cuts that this authority is suffering, that we deplore the cuts and that we cannot sustain the cuts in order to do the service that we're required to do. Because we are responsible in the end for the safety of people in our area, and we have to make it very, very clear that having the cuts to the service is not the way that we really can operate in order to provide the service that the people of this area require. I mean, it's really, really serious, isn't it? And I applaud the fact that we're communicating with others around us and that we will cooperate with others around us and we will have their cooperation too. But if you see, if something happened elsewhere in a neighbouring area and we're dependent on them and then something happens here, I'm afraid that there are resources that are simply not going to be available. So have we made it clear?
Well, I think that's a difficult question for the Chief Forester to ask because it has political connotations, which I don't think he should be involved with. But from my experience with the Fire Authority in the past, every time there has been significant reductions, regardless of the political party at national level involved, we have made the strongest representations and on occasions gone down to the Home Office. And Councillor Maguire's got a longer history than most of us. Will probably tell you what actually went on. So it's something that all of us in this room share. We do want reductions in funding. We want to enhance their services. So it's not just from one political point of view. We all share that views. But I don't really want to put fire officers or anybody else in a position where they've got to answer questions. They've got political connotations. It's not fair.
Chair, could I make a non-political?
And I have to emphasise I was making a non-political point.
Was it? Oh,
It was an absolutely non-political point. And I would hope that it would be recognised in that way. Because if a fire authority is suffering cuts, it's not a political question, it's a question that goes to the safety and the well-being of everybody in this area. And I wouldn't see that as political, and I would hope that nobody else would see it as a political point.
So, just in response to the point that Councillor makes, this may, I'll be slightly contentious, and it does come back to the point that Councillor Ames made around managing our resources effectively. If we look at where we are now in 2017 and where we've come from since the cuts process initially began in 2010, we have taken somewhere in the region of £7 million out of our budget. So, actually, I can sit here and honestly say to you the service we provide is as good as it was £7 million ago. We have managed to reorganise the service right from top to bottom, our support services, our frontline services, our officers, right across the piece, so that we could manage our resources effectively and contain ourselves within that budget. But I refer back to the point I made earlier, there is only so much that we can go to before my recommendation to you would be, if we do this, it will impact on our ability to deliver a service. And my professional opinion is we can cope with the level of cuts we've got at the moment, but if we go much beyond that, it will mean there will be a significant impact on our ability to deliver a service.
Okay.
Chairman.
Yes, two more people would like to speak. Normally you'll only get one bite of the cherry. As this is the first session of the Fire Authority, we'll allow members to sort of stretch their legs, so to speak. Councillor Maguire.
Well, the only reason I put my hand up, Chairman, is because you referred to me specifically in terms of
that's fine.
response to Councillor Scott.
Yeah, don't make it political.
No, and I think what Mr. Strickland has said emphasises the point that, as you say, £7 million, will be any less effective authority than the trade one. Representations have been made, but again, you're talking about competing services. So we all know the problems on adult social service and then in Mark Palace, and whether or not one agrees with the austerity measures taken by the current government or not, and whether or not you accept the fact that a previous government said there's no money left in the bank, whatever, I think we have to look after our own interest. And one of the problems I think we've faced for a long time, it's a lot of criticism, is how cost-effective fire services are. Because if we're not cost-effective, I believe we are, certainly in this authority, then others who are able to dictate to us exactly what our future is, you give them more ammunition to say we should come under a different regime or whatever. So I think we have to be extremely careful. We're fortunate in the Fire Authority is that we tend to be apolitical about this, and I hope that will continue to be. But we've always made representations to the Fire Services Committee, the LGA, about the concerns about funding, future funding, whatever. And I hope that will continue and we will speak with one voice in that regard, Chairman.
Councillor Kindersley, then we're going to draw a line under this one.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, with the greatest of respect to Councillor Scott, actually I took from what she said that it was very purely political. And I'm not taking any particular issue with that one way or another. I mean, we are all political animals sat around in proportionate ways to do with our politics. So I take Councillor Maguire's point about being apolitical, and I'm sure that we generally are. But it's not really the past that we need to be so concerned about as the future. And I think this is the point that the Chief Fire Officer is making, that like the 7 million, he, in his opinion, has not impacted on the service delivered to the residents of Cambridgeshire Peterborough, but that any further cuts will. And that's, I think, the very difficult position we find ourselves in, and that is where perhaps instead of having sent Councillor Maguire to Westminster for all of these years, we should try someone else, because it doesn't seem to have gone terribly well. So I mean, I think that's what we all have to be alert to, of all political parties and none.
Point of personal explanation, it's not political to be concerned about people's safety.
I completely agree, but I didn't get that from your speech. That's all.
Right, okay, that's enough banter across the room.
Can I just make one more point? Completely unrelated, but actually something I have omitted. When you've got the consultation reports back from the public sector, there was another consultation that you'd expect of this from the Fire Brigade Union. Unfortunately, that was late, so it's not within your pack. And the reason it was late, there's a very good reason, in that they've been dealing with the negotiations that we're about to come on to. I will make sure you all see a full copy of that consultation from the Fire Brigade Union. Given this is a dynamic document, if there's anything in that that you feel actually that's strong enough that we need to change some of this, we can do that at a later date, but enable us to publish this. And it may well then be the next JCC, which is a joint consultative committee between members and the Fire Brigade Union, Unison, RFU, etc. That members may wish to make that an agenda item to have a more detailed discussion with you.
Okay, we're going to move on. Before we do, I'd like to confirm the plan as presented, subject to an update on population figures and the FBU report being circulated. It's approved by the authority. Are you all in agreement?
We agree.
Any to the contrary? Okay, thank you. Item A, negotiations to increase daytime fire cover. You've got a separate report that followed later.
Chair, I
You've got it. Well, we'll make sure you get
I'll see you then.
And it was in official.
What's impossible?
Oh, unless Dawn brought them all with her. Yeah, she did say that they weren't actually she brought them all. Yeah, they're very small. She's very good at that.
Yeah.
It's very nice business.
mine's on the computer. Mr. Hilton's going to introduce this item. So I'll just wait for the movements. Okay, thank you, Chairman, once again. I was at a meeting the other week actually, and about organisational success, and
someone said there that a good organisation is one that understands its strengths, but importantly understands the areas that it needs to improve, and I think this paper kind of cuts right to that. I think this authority has always had a very self-aware approach to the organisation and recognises the things that we do well, but also recognises the areas that need to be improved. And this is one of those such areas. If I can just refer you back to the IRMP document on page 36 of your packs, you will see a graph on that page that illustrates the challenge we face as an authority. And that graph shows the client's availability, which is the little blue line, members find it, against the call rates that we experience during the time of the day. And you will see that the graph in effect is the wrong way round, because when our availability is at its lowest, our call rates are at their highest, and then the same is true on the other way round. Gives us lots of resilience in the night and the evening, but actually when our call rates are at their greatest, actually cuts us the point that the Chief Officer was making before in terms of actually that resilience that we need within our service. And so this paper seeks to address that. I'm asking you to acknowledge this report and approve the establishment of a new duty system for Cambridgeshire, and that's detailed in Appendix 1. It's aligned to our integrated risk management plan, and it creates 2 additional whole-time fire appliances 7 days a week. So in effect it begins to address that challenge we face and fundamentally improves fire cover for the people of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. It's one of the measures that will enable us to improve that response time to rural areas. The service has sometimes had difficulties, as has others up and down the country, in terms of recruiting and retaining on-call staff. And we've worked hard to do that. We have tried to create, back in 2014, removing 10 staff from the current fire watch system and placing them into a tactical delivery group with the sole purpose of supporting those on-call stations by going out and put those vehicles on the run. We also use on-call staff to go and stand by at different stations to help put those on the run. So we've done a number of things. The problem with that current model is it's quite reactive and it's very reliant on the goodwill, especially of those on-call staff being prepared to go and stand by at other stations. The members of the authority previously had the good foresight, I think, in terms of when we made the savings ahead of the CSR back in 2010, to invest that money on frontline equipment. And that frontline equipment went onto our rescue pumps, our frontline fire engines, to enhance the equipment that they carried. That meant that when a fire engine responded to a road traffic collision or other special service, it had the equipment to hand and wasn't waiting for a special appliance in the form of a rescue vehicle to attend the scene. But as a result of that, despite that helping us to deliver a better service and a more effective service, it meant the rescue vehicles that were currently crewed were then actually in a position where the demand on them, the times we needed to use them, was much less. And I talked before about as being risk-based and not demand-led, but the risk that those appliances were covering was mitigated by the upgrading of the equipment on the frontline appliances. So in effect they were becoming obsolete. However, they contained firefighters who are critical to being able to deliver a frontline response, were delivering excellent work in community safety and fire protection, and so although they weren't required so much for operational reasons, they absolutely were still required in terms of the organisation being able to deliver the service to the public that we wanted to do. The Chief Fire Officer brought a paper to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee in early 2016, January 2016, having done some work on the reduction in those demands, and members agreed that officers should look at ways in which those staff could be reutilised to improve the service to the public. In October 2016, the authority agreed to us moving forward with negotiations with the Fire Brigade Union to look at whether we could reach a deal to move those posts onto an arrangement that would enable us to have 2 additional whole-time fire engines 7 days a week. For that negotiation to be successful, any outcome needed to meet the three pillars of the negotiation, which was to improve service to the public, to provide appropriate work conditions for staff, and to be such that the organisation could administer it effectively. We weren't seeking to make the change just for the change, saying that it needed to do those three things. Now, we learnt a lot from our previous negotiations. I learnt a lot personally. And one of the things that we chose to do this time was to be outcome focused. So we talked very much about what we wanted to achieve, not how we were going to achieve it. And that enabled that both negotiation teams could come together and look at the art of what was actually possible to achieve. I should at this point pay tribute to the negotiation teams, John Anderson, Kevin Napier and Steve Beaton on behalf of the service, and Cameron Matthews and Martin Harding on behalf of the employees and the FBU. They've worked tirelessly on this with real professionalism. These deals are never easy to do. I would not advocate this was a cosy relationship by any stretch of the imagination, but they were resolute and professional in trying to find a solution to this. And it's that hard tenacity that's helped us to get to where we are today. And where we are today is having been in negotiations for those 6 months. A draft collective agreement was developed, which was acceptable to both parties. That was then taken by the Fire Brigades Union to their branches for a vote, and fundamentally back to their brigade committee for decision. And the end outcome of that is that there has been an agreement to move forward with that collective agreement. It's acknowledged, and I think it should be recognised by the authority at this point, that despite only moving over to their shift system in 2012, and notwithstanding the impact that this move will have on both domestic and in some cases financial aspects of their lives, in the interest of providing a better service to the public, our frontline staff have once again stepped up and been counted and chosen to accept this deal. And we as a Chief Officers Group, and I'm sure you as members, are very grateful for them for doing this. This now means that with the introduction of a new shift system, it will enable us to have 2 fire engines available every day when call levels are at their highest. We will be able to better match our resources to our demand and risk. We maintain a rescue vehicle and an aerial capability north and south, and we seek to phase out the Huntington's rescue vehicle over this year, and members will therefore be able to go some way to meet some of the challenges detailed within the integrated risk management plan. There is an option. The option is that members choose not to sign up or allow the authority to move in this direction. This would mean that if we still wanted to make those improvements in service delivery, we'd need to find an alternative way of doing so. We could do that. We could look at an alternative solution, but my professional advice is that would be problematic and turbulent, and probably not achieve the benefits that this deal has here. So I put the paper to you, acknowledging the hard work that's gone into securing this deal, and thanking staff for once again for their flexibility and willingness to make this change, and ask members if you'd be willing to accept this and allow us to move forward now with the introduction of the new shift system for Cambridgeshire for 2018.
Thank you for that. Update before we take questions. Can I just say that 2 minutes before the meeting I was informed that the Fire Brigade Union representative would like to address the Fire Authority. You know, in the past that doesn't happen, so the representative was asked to put what he was going to say in writing. Unfortunately, I am informed it covered a whole wide range of areas, not necessarily detailing this subject only. Therefore, I think it is inappropriate. However, that said, I want to continue the good relationships we've got with the Fire Brigade Union. So once we've dealt with this item, if any members have questions to put to the Fire Brigade Union, I am prepared to suspend standing orders for 10 minutes. It will be time limited for you to put the questions and for Cameron to answer them. So what we'll do, we'll take the questions on this matter, deal with it, and then I'll ask you if you have any specific questions to the Fire Brigades Union, and then we'll suspend orders for 10 minutes. That's the fairest way I could see with doing it. If I allow them to speak now, we're breaking with normal conventions, and it might start a precedent. Much as I want to have them around the table and congratulate them on what they've done, I don't want to start precedents for the future. I know the Fire Authority myself is very keen to have a close and good relationship with fire brigades in the union, and I'll make sure that that does happen. So, questions for this one? Anybody? Is that agreed? No.
Just a comment, it's not a question. And it's
Comment
just,
as well, yeah. Okay, comments.
a huge congratulations to Rick and John and in fact the whole team on this project, which I think is really brilliant to have a paper coming back to us on something like this, which has been so contentious and so difficult in the past. And clearly things have been done in a much better way this time. So well done all of you, and huge thank you to everybody who's been involved from all of us. I slightly wonder whether there is a slight change in the organisational culture which makes this easier, and if that's the case, then that's a very good thing. Thank you very much.
Very positive. Councillor
Well, I think you said everything I was going to say. The only thing I was going to add to that is, seems that you're going to suspend standing orders. I think it would be just nice to give him 5 minutes and we have 5 minutes of questions.
Yeah, well that's a more formal way I see of doing it. We don't set no precedents for the future. Once you do it once, you've got to do it all the time, and you just can't do it. So, the recommendation is, in 2.1, the authority is asked to acknowledge contents of the report, new duty system. Are you happy to accept that? Any to the contrary? And doing so formally to have recorded from the Fire Authority, I too would like to endorse a gratitude to both the officers concerned and the Fire Brigade Union in a pragmatic and sensible way this has been approached. Right, would you like to have a bit of question time with the Fire Brigade Union, limited to 10 minutes? Is that the wish of everybody? Okay, well I'll formally suspend... Sorry?
Well, everybody's saying yes, but there aren't any questions.
Yes.
I've got the impression is it the intention to allow Cameron to address us for 5 minutes and then respond with questions? Is that the intention, or is it questions related?
When I originally saw this paper, I thought you'd have loads of questions. So clearly you haven't. Yeah. So we can, or have you? So we can, if we can ask Cameron, and that 10 minutes is going to be strict. If you haven't got your questions out by 10 minutes, tough. The hammer comes down.
You have an advantage on us, Chairman, that you've seen paper or questions as posed by the fire union. So we can only rely on your judgment in this particular case. But
to be honest, I haven't seen it. I was advised. So, yeah, there seems to be a consensus of opinion that we'll suspend standing orders for 10 minutes. We'll ask Cameron to address the Fire Authority. 5 minutes for questions, and then the guillotine's down.
Right, okay.
Okay.
There you go.
Right. Formally suspended. Okay, we're back in session, and we'll go on to the next item, sharing of brigade managers. Mr. Hill.
Thank you, Chairman. There again. Okay, this paper comes to you in relation to the sharing of brigade managers, so in other words, Chris and myself, in times of operational resilience. I'll give a little bit of detail around that. Been asked to approve, and this is in conjunction with Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Service. So I'm asking you to agree in principle to some wording changes to the schemes of delegation to enable us to put in place a memorandum of understanding between ourselves and Bedfordshire, between yourselves and Bedfordshire Fire Authority, to share brigade managers in times of operational resilience. Now, Bedfordshire Fire Authority would also need to approve this. It says on your paper that will be on the 19th of July. That date is subject to change, and so I would like to change the recommendation to ask you to approve on conditional to Bedfordshire Fire Authority agreement in due course or something like that. Thank you, Councillor McGuire, rather than hold them to that date, because that will be for them to do. In terms of a little bit of background, we've talked an awful lot about significant incidents, and this country has seen a number of those. And in those types of events, brigade managers are required to command a large and significant operational incident, or attend what we call a strategic coordinating group, which is a gold level meeting normally chaired by the police at the police headquarters between all partners involved in that emergency under our requirements under the Civil Contingencies Act as a Cat 1 responder. To represent the service in that position requires that the officer who attends has both the qualifications but also the schemes of delegation passed by yourselves to make decisions on behalf of the authority in terms of operational decisions, but also in terms of making decisions in terms of spending authority money in the event of large-scale incidents. Now, in 2016, we as a service reduced the number of operational brigade managers from 3 to 2. And that leaves only the Chief Fire Officer and myself. Now, this was not only for operational reasons, but also to make provisions for officers under the delegated schemes of authority to make decisions to resolve operational incidents and aid recovery. So, at the moment, that operates on the fact that both Chris and I are contractually required to be available on recall to duty 24/7. When we made the reductions from 3 to 2, one of the areas that members of the authority at the time were concerned about was resilience in the event of a large-scale incident, a protracted incident, when there was only 2 brigade managers. Given that one could well be on holiday, what would happen if the subsequent one was sick or ill or whatever it might be, unable to attend. Notwithstanding that, a large protracted incident could go on for several days, as we're seeing in London now, and with only one brigade manager in terms of being able to get rest and recuperation over that period of time, that left a question. Now, to date, the arrangements have been suitable and sufficient to meet all other requirements that we've had. However, there are a number of foreseeable circumstances, I've said, where the resilience within this system may not be up to what we'd want, and therefore may cause difficulties in terms of the authority being able to deliver its obligations under the Civil Contingencies Act. Therefore, Bedfordshire, who also only have 2 uniformed principal officers, or uniformed officers, faced a similar problem, in that there is only 2 of those 2. So on your behalf, we've had conversations with Bedfordshire Fire and Rescue Service, and there is a clear opportunity to remove the risks, or mitigate the risks from both of the authorities by signing a memorandum of understanding to share brigade managers in terms of operational resilience. Please add, this is only in times of operational resilience. This isn't sharing across the border for day-to-day management of the service. This is about operational resilience in the event of a large-scale incident. To fulfil that strategic function, the brigade manager, as I said, for either service, would need the delegated responsibility of this authority to be able to sit and represent them at a gold level meeting. Likewise, Bedfordshire officers, Chris and I, would need the delegated authority of the Bedfordshire Fire Authority to be able to do likewise for them. So this is a reciprocal arrangement. It's not just Bedfordshire coming here. In the event Bedfordshire had a protracted incident, Chris or I would potentially go across. And so 6.4 of the paper sets out what we need to do to enable the memorandum of understanding to be activated is for you to agree to an amendment of the schemes of delegation, which can be found on page 63. And for that wording, that is in yellow, to be inserted into the schemes of delegation, of which, in the event that we feel we need to, we would delegate the authority that Chris or I have to either the Chief Fire Officer or the Deputy Chief Fire Officer for Bedfordshire. Likewise, they'll have a reciprocal arrangement within their scheme of delegations as well. I'm happy to take questions, Chris.
I think recent events will highlight the potential issues that we face. Just as a matter of interest, when the Manchester incident happened, I was in Ibiza. So Rick obviously happened in the evening, so we did make contact in the evening, and we had discussions about whether I might need to come back again. But actually, if you think about it, even to get back from Ibiza at 12 o'clock at night isn't going to happen for at least another 12 hours. So that then puts one person in the hot seat. The following week, when we had the London attack, Rick was away and I was in the service, so it was just happened to be the way it was. But that illustrates potentially what could happen. Luckily it was happening elsewhere, but if it happened here, that could be a problem for us. And I think the reason we have this difficulty, and Rick has highlighted it, is because we would at one time have had 4 principal officers, and with 4 you can cover 24/7, 365 days a year within the working time regulations. When you're Act 2, you can't, so that's why we're contractually obliged to be, in effect, available 24/7, 365 wherever we are in the world. But there are still practical difficulties if it does happen with one of us getting back or if one of us goes down. So the reality is we need to put something in place to provide that additional level of resilience, because, you know, sod's law, it will happen. So having that backup will help us.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Nsinga, then.
I just wanted, I think this is, I have no problem with this paper. I know this has been on the way and I'm glad it's here, and it's very important for us to have this in place to increase our resilience. I just wanted to link this document back with some of the things that were said in the previous conversation about the fact that you've made £7 million worth of savings and not made any impact on the front line. Because I didn't think when you said that that was quite true. I think that there is, without question, some reduction in the level of resilience in the service. And they're difficult times, the level of the number of call-outs has gone down. I think it's reasonable to have that reduction in the level of resilience, but I think we have to recognise that the cuts that have been made have led to a reduction in the level of resilience of the service, and given that this is an insurance service, we need to be very aware of that. This helps, but this supports our level of resilience in Cambridgeshire by bringing in some support from Bedfordshire. But if you were looking at a really big incident across the whole of East Anglia, the level of resilience across the whole of East Anglia is not increased by this change. So I just think that everybody needs to be aware of that. It's fine, we have to go ahead with it, but we just need to be aware where we are.
Okay. I think if the Chief Officer addresses the panel and gives an assurance that there's no reduction, we have to accept that at face value. I don't really see that you can contest that. We're going to we're moving on. Councillor Kindersley, followed by Councillor Rain.
Thank you. This is very sensible, and I'm very supportive of it, but it did rather lead me to think about this in a wider context, which actually Councillor Nexen has also referred to. Are we intending or considering having equivalent arrangements with Essex, Hertfordshire, and so on? Because, or indeed, is Bedfordshire considering this with its neighbouring fire authority areas? Because I think that one of the points, and I can't remember who made it, but it may well have been the representative from the FBU, one of the points that he made was that had the incident only taken place in the eastern region, every fire tender would have been involved. You know, we're talking that sort of level in terms of numbers of people. And we've got to accept that in this day and age, terrorism in particular is an issue that we cannot either be sure is going to happen, and we can't be certain where it's going to happen. And if you think of the kind of national infrastructure in Bedfordshire, in particular, you've got issues such as Luton Airport, and it would seem to me that if, God forbid, something really catastrophic happened at Luton Airport, it would be all very well somebody coming from Cambridgeshire, or even two people coming from Cambridgeshire, but a job that giant would necessarily require assistance from other parties as well. So this is a great first step, I would think, and it may well be that there is a national or regional network which would allow this to be replicated across the area. But we have to plan for the worst, don't we? And it would seem to me that planning for the worst, unfortunately, now means we must plan for a really truly catastrophic incident somewhere, unfortunately, not that far away. So I'd be interested to know what your thoughts on that are.
Okay, firstly, I can reassure members there's something called NCAP, which is it's an advisory framework for fire fire service, where we could, if we needed it, get assistance at a national level from input from other chiefs, senior officers to support us in the times of an incident. It would be very nice if we could get an agreement across the region for additional support. We have been talking to other services about that. Certainly, I've had some recent discussions with Suffolk. Getting it moved forward has been more of an issue, but that's something we are looking at. You know, I'm quite pleased actually we've managed to get as far as we have with Bedfordshire, because it will give us that resilience we're looking for, and particularly because we've already got, I mean, you're probably not aware of this, but we've already got a similar arrangement at area command level. So we have a backup arrangement with Bedfordshire, because again we only have 3 area commanders, and as I said earlier, 4 is the minimum really for you to have a fully resilient organisation. It's nice that the chair supported me, but I think, you know, I do hold my hands up on the point that you made there, Lucy, because when I was making my statement, I was thinking more around the frontline service, but you're absolutely right. In terms of us at principal officer level, there is a reduction in the level of service. I won't dispute that. But certainly further through the organisation, the changes we've made haven't reduced the service. In fact, we've managed to improve the service in some areas. But you're absolutely right, we have reduced the service at Harlem.
So just to be clear, so no one's in that, I think most of us understood what you said originally. There's been no reduction in operational capabilities. Is that the case?
Right, so I'm clarifying there, Chair. There is no reduction of our ability to deliver a service from fire stations up through to area command. In fact, we've enhanced it, certainly at area command, group command level, and maintained it through the rest of the organisation. But at principal level, yes, there is a reduction in our ability, because we've taken 1 out of 3 of the operational managers over the last year. However, the work we're doing is offsetting that, but it won't fully offset it, so there is a slight reduction at that level.
That's perfectly clear. Okay, we'll move on. Councillor Rains and followed by Councillor Maguire.
Thank you. A very straightforward question. I mean, very good again, having experience in practice that you are managing within reduced resources and managing that situation proactively. Just for the record, can you confirm the only change to the delegations that's being put in front of us is from the highlighted paragraph, and we're not actually altering the delegations more generally?
Just that is what you need, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Just operational capabilities is the point you wanted to confirm. Councillor Maguire, followed by...
I was trying to indicate that I did not need to answer my question because Councillor Previously had already covered it.
Okay. I'm a bit mutton, so sometimes I can't always understand what's being said. Yeah, I've only got one here in 18, so I don't know where the other one is. Councillor Over, followed by Councillor Eddy.
Thank you, Chair. This is really to reiterate, say again, that other people have said before me, but Bedfordshire to me is a long way south, and I would hesitate to even think about going that far south myself. But nevertheless, I believe it's down there somewhere. I'm just going to flag up North Cambridgeshire, Peterborough. If we're talking about large-scale incidents, how about Wittering and the nuclear store there? I guess if that goes up, it will pass worrying about it. But nevertheless, I hear lots of counties and things south of here, but some of our major risks are in Peterborough, and maybe Lincolnshire would be a good target for a memorandum.
So if you wish to respond to that, please do.
Sure. Okay, so in terms of how we deliver the service, at station command level, all of our station managers must work within our area, so that their response times will get them to an incident at an early stage. Same goes with group command. Once we hit area command, that's a more strategic level of management. So with the new system we have in place with Bedfordshire, we expect any of our officers to be able to get to either Bedfordshire headquarters or this headquarters within an hour of being called. So they have to live or camp out when they're on duty within that radius. That ensures that they can get to the gold decision-making point, if you like, within an hour. That then is the same for us as well. So we have to live within an hour of this location, which we will do.
Thank you. Councillor Adey.
Thank you, Chair.
I struggle to think of comparable organisations where we expect our chief executives to actually be office-based and running an organisation, but also be able to leap out and perform a job which is so exacting and so stressful. My question would be, have we at all considered in getting more resilience the options of temporary promotion to other senior staff to fill the roles which we've only got too far?
No, we haven't, is the honest answer. I think we are a relatively small organisation, and so those staff then that come in to potentially act up onto that rota will be temporary promoted have to come from somewhere, and our rotas are built with the minimum numbers required. So all the way down, you end up having to put in place arrangements. So the only people in the organisation who could potentially sit on the rota that Chris and I are on would be one of our area commanders, because they need to have undergone the required training and skills, etc., to be able to do that. But then that, of course, would leave an area commander short on that rota, so we need to bring one of our group commanders through, and you can see where this is going. It just continues to fall through. In the case of emergencies, if something were to happen to Chris or I for a long period of time, then we have that arrangement in place where we can bring someone up temporarily. But as a day-to-day rule, our rotas are based on the minimum numbers required. Back to that efficiency point again, and we don't have that scope to be able to bring people through.
But if I may add, there is one additional point to that. So there is an overlap between each level. So an area command can work at gold level. As I said earlier, that's why we have the hour. So ordinarily, if there was a large incident at gold level, you'd be looking to try and restore normality. So the area commander can make an immediate response, can start dealing with that incident across with our multi-agency partners. An area commander can also go to an incident and take command of it. The group commander can take command of the incident, or they can go and manage a sector of the incident, and so on through the organisation. So you get an overlap, which provides a degree of resilience through the piece.
Councillor Giles.
Chairman, it's really on a point of clarification. The members from Clevedborough think well stops at not includes Bedfordshire. It's literally only 12 miles from the area borders. Really is. Still carriageway to Kempston. I can do it in 10 minutes. Just without a blue light.
Thank you for that lesson. With that done and dusted, we'll take the vote and confirm this on item 2.1 as in the agenda papers, except that we'll delete on the 19th of July 2017 to take the timeline out to allow more flexibility. Are you all happy with that recommendation? Agreed. Any to the contrary? No. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Members' Allowance Scheme. 10. Who's dealing with this? Dash off.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, this is a paper that comes from time to time. The authority is under a legal obligation to keep the allowance scheme under review, and this authority has normally reviewed it every 4 years, so that it's brought in line with inflation, other major changes to positions, etc. Reviews usually happen through an independent panel. They look nationally, they do benchmarking, and these panels are a very expensive process. So what the Fire Authority has done in the past is to piggyback with the County Council's independent panel review. This year we've got a slight issue in that the County Council doesn't start its review until later this year, whereas our scheme is up for renewal in March of this year. So we've got a bit of a time lag. And rather than in the current climate, spend lots of money on a review that may not last for 4 years, but who's to say? Our recommendation is really that you extend the current scheme just for pragmatic reasons until the County Council does its review, and then we will take forward any recommendations from that review. So that's the basis on which we're suggesting you retain the status quo. There is one slight change, though, that is being proposed to you, and that's a matter for members whether you approve that or not. It's page 84 of the pack, and it's paragraph 11.2. It sounds a little contentious, but perhaps if I can explain what the rationale is. The rationale is to encourage full attendance at meetings. And of course there are times when members can't attend meetings and you send apologies. That's not an issue at all. But the proposal here to start a discussion if there is non-attendance for 2 or more meetings is really just to ensure that high level of attendance, any issues are flagged early with group leaders, etc. In these times of heightened scrutiny on fire authority efficiency and effectiveness, that is the reason for this bit of the proposal to be recommended to you. That will be up for review in a year in any event. With that, Chair, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions, Councillor Maguire, Councillor.
Just for clarification, picking up that point that Shaheen has mentioned there, are we talking about specifically fire authority meetings or any meetings of fire authority?
Yes, I think it's meant to be for any meeting because we only have 4 fire authority meetings a year and 4 of every other meeting, so that's not a lot of...
But so it's inclusive of all meetings?
It
I want
is.
to make sure that people understand that.
Yes. Subject to your views, of course, and your approval.
Thank you, Chairman. Members' allowances are always very contentious, and some authorities, not a million miles away from here, have got in quite deep water with the public when it comes to various proposals. The independent panel, which is an expensive way of doing it, always comes up with what I think historically have been quite generous suggestions, which are generally speaking either ignored or watered down by the authority in question. And I'm not pointing fingers. At South Cambridgeshire, in order to save money, what they did was simply to agree that whatever staff colleagues got as part of their national negotiation, be it 0%, 1% or 5%, would simply be replicated for councillor allowances, which struck me at the time as a pragmatic, sensible and cheap way forward. So I wonder if that's something, perhaps, Chairman, you could take away and give some thought to.
I'll do exactly that. I'll take it away and give some thought to it. Yeah, there's merit in what you say, obviously. Somebody will remind me. I'll do that. Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the removal of the allowance after the failure of attending 2 meetings, would that absolve that member of any responsibility whatsoever with regards to the fire authority?
Well, the legal position, Councillor, is that once you are appointed to the fire authority, you are appointed by your group unless you lose your seat. And so, in that sense, you take up a seat at this valuable authority for 12 months. And this is just one mechanism. Hopefully, it's a carrot rather than a stick to ensure that attendance does occur. I'm sorry, I can't.
So if you've no allowance, you still are responsible for all sorts of things that could happen.
You still are a member of the fire authority, and that becomes a matter for your group and your party.
Anybody else wishes to speak? Well, I'll make a comment on that because that's not an area I feel particularly comfortable with. Insofar as if it was 2 meetings of the fire authority, yeah, that's okay. But 2 consecutive meetings, any meetings. You could have a full fire authority and 2 weeks later JCC scrutiny and somebody had a genuine, more than this is a genuine but a more significant illness and they're off for 3 or 4 weeks, they could fall within this trap of missing 2 meetings. And I do think, given the conscientious nature of members in general, that it's slightly unfair. And I'd be happy to have it as 2 full fire authority meetings, but I'm not at all comfortable in having 2 consecutive meetings, which could bring a lot of members and cause additional work and resource issues. Anybody got any views on what I just said?
If I go back, that was partly the point in my question, Shane, as to what was being suggested. And I was slightly, for similar reasons to yourself, concerned about this when I first read it. In other areas, you talk about a moral obligation, maybe to consider whether you take your basic allowance of SRA or whatever. However, I was generally satisfied because it's not going to be a mandatory reduction, it would be in discussion with group leaders, and therefore the group leader would take into account, one would hope, extenuating circumstances, which the expenditure has been on it. So I was less concerned when I read that.
One moment, comment. Yes, please.
I will be missing 2 meetings, and I look forward to our conversation.
It's full of weasel words. It's weasel words. It's, if appropriate, their political group leader to consider. There's absolutely, I agree, nothing mandatory whatsoever. It's a weasel word paragraph. So anybody can get out of it if their group leader thinks that what they've done is not worthy of having the allowance to spend it.
Well, I don't think it's a case of getting out of it, it's a case of not getting into it to start with. It's probably the relevant thing.
Well, I actually endorse it, and I think that it's a good idea, and I think that we all ought to be aware that if we're taking an allowance, that we should actually comply with the requirements and turn it up. And I'm saying that knowing that because I've got a full-time job, this rule may apply to me.
Absolutely.
I recognise that.
Councillor Giles,
I'm just puzzling who my group leader would be.
Conversation with yourself.
Councillor Rayner, then Councillor Kindersley. Councillor Rayner? Sorry, I thought you had Councillor Kindersley, then Rogers.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the point is that you made, which is that members are conscientious in general. When I was previously on the Fire Authority, there was one member who I never ever met at all. That's how unconscientious they were, but it was very unusual. And I think the point about this is that should there be a member like that, then their group leader has the ability to hold their feet to the fire. So I agree with Councillor Scott. I think this paragraph does what it's setting out to do, which is to put a little pressure on without any major drama.
Okay. Councillor Rogers, and you'll have the last word, and we'll take it back.
I have to admit, I do support Councillor Kindersley on this particular one. Could I just refer to another point we were discussing? If you turn to page 85 of 94, I think the chart there shows that it is suggested that the allowance for this year is 1% higher than it was last year, which falls in line with, I think, current regulations as regards
public pay sector
scale.
Okay, last word.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Really, this is not a paper that wants to suggest that members' allowances are suspended at all. It really is, as Councillor said over here, to start a gentle discussion in the event of a long-running thing. Members are recognised to be valuable in what they do, and it really is just to bring that occasional issue to the fore. And it certainly isn't that an allowance will be suspended after 2 months. After 2 months, there will start to be a conversation as to whether there is a perfectly valid reason or not, and to take it from there. So nothing compels you, and nothing allows officers to suspend allowances on the strength of this paper.
Okay. We'll have a good kick of the ball on that one. Everybody in agreement?
Yeah. No, Chair, I'm not in agreement.
Okay, well I was going to ask any to the contrary. Well, that's fair. Right. Let's move on to the next item. Appointment to committees outside organisations. You should have a paper circulated with names filling in the empty boxes for different committees. Sorry? Yes, please do. Dawn wishes to address the committee.
You should all have a copy in front of you. Thanks to the group leaders for providing me with names. There's a few gaps on subs, but that's all. There's just one I wanted to pick up with Councillor Jamil for JCC. Have you identified? It will be Councillor Scott. Super. The only addition to this schedule from previous meetings is the combined authority, and that is automatically the chairman of the Fire Authority sits sits on the combined authority.
Look forward to it.
I don't know whether Shirley wanted to mention JCC at all, or?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We met as a JCC, that's the Joint Consultative Committee, which is on your schedule, and it was agreed there that it might be useful at this first meeting with so many new members for me just to very quickly introduce you to the three main unions who attend that. Cameron Matthews, who you've met today from the FBU. The RFU are also represented there by Mark Milner and Tony Rain. For obvious reasons they work, they can't be at all of these meetings. And we also have Kevin James from Unison, and Kevin sits there. Perhaps Kevin could just say
Yes.
We can
You can
see.
dance now.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kevin James. I'm a community fire safety officer and the Unison rep, and I represent the non-uniform side of the fire rescue service.
Thank you. Okay, happy to accept that, what we've got circulated. Okay, now for the final item, probably the biggest item, is an update. Who's going to do that? Matthew's going to give us this update.
Good afternoon, members. Very briefly, just a report to note and for you to consider further in terms of the response to the local business case that the Police and Crime Commissioner will shortly be publishing. He's looking to publish it in early July. It has a number of options within the business case which he sets out. That's he's looking effectively at the governance option predominantly. That's what comes out of the business case. But really, what I'm asking for this afternoon is obviously acknowledgement that is going to go live in July, and then for you to consider your response as a fire authority. Whilst you're not a statutory consultee, clearly the upper tier authorities will have a role to play in this, and we need to prepare a response in advance.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm sure members will have read the letter from the Police and Crime Commissioner to staff with some interest. And I certainly did, and I wasn't terribly enthusiastic about what the Police and Crime Commissioner is proposing, which is the governance option as set out on page 1. And so I would like to suggest that we perhaps review this in terms of the position that the Fire Authority takes as a recommendation to the up-tier authorities, so the City Council presumably and Cambridgeshire County Council. Because it seems to me that if we don't commission officers to do a report today, not to do the report today, but commission them to do a report today, in support of our continued survival, in fact, the do-nothing option, then we are going to run out of time. Now, it may well be that members of the Fire Authority are not in favour of the do-nothing option, but certainly from a personal perspective, that is the one that I would favour. If I was pushed, then I would be happy with the representation option, which is where the Police and Crime Commissioner has a seat and voting rights on the Fire Authority. But neither of those two options are what the Police and Crime Commissioner is suggesting. So I suppose my question to you, Chairman, is, would it be in order for somebody here to propose, somebody else to second, that we commission senior management team to prepare a case for the do-nothing option, i.e. the retention of the Fire Authority in its current state, and at second best, a case supporting the representation option. And I'd be interested to hear what other members had to say about that. And the way I see the timescale working on is that at some point fairly soon, and I can't remember the exact date in July, by which point the officer report would have been circulated to us, we would have been able to feed back on that officer report, and we would then be able to endorse it as the Fire Authority's position in relation to the Police and Crime Commissioner's land grab.
Okay, there's several points you've raised there. First of all, regarding the letter that went to County Council employees, when I see the PCC, I will remind him of protocols for circulating such letters. I had no idea that was going around the County Council staff. So that wasn't probably the best move that he's ever done. With regard to the do nothing option, I think, whilst I think today we should commission a report by officers, by having the do nothing option, you've prejudged it before you've gone into the document. I think a full report in response to the consultation document should be drawn up for us to consider, and then we come up with what we support.
Quite right.
If
Quite
we
right.
start off with do nothing, then we've put the blinkers on,
Yeah,
and
no,
we shouldn't be like that.
Yeah.
But